What is good, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's going on with NIO, Tesla, SPY, Nvda, and the QQQ and give you guys a very important warning about the markets. I'm also going to break down how the technicals are looking so far as we're looking at NIO so far. Before I break things up, all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I'm personally not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, the link down below, and deposit $100 into the account, you are guaranteed up to 5 free stocks. Now, this offer ends in just about 5 days from now, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, let's break down what's going on with the market. So, as a reminder, we have some very big data coming out for the markets that will end up affecting NIO. I just want to quickly talk about that before I end up transitioning to the charts. So, for tomorrow, we have all this data coming out. First and foremost, when the market, an hour before the market opens, we have the PPI data coming out. Now, PPI is a leading indicator for CPI, so this may lead to some volatility. And when we watch this, we want to be watching to see how this ends up affecting the markets and how this ends up, affecting, future projections and things like that. But the bottom line is we want core PPI year over year to be 2.2 to 2.3% or something like that. If it's hotter than that range, that's going to cause the market to possibly cool off a little bit. If not, if it's as expected, that could help the market hold up. And that's for PPI year over year on the core side. For PPI year over year, we also want it to be 1.6% to 1.7% for all items. So be on the lookout for that 1 hour before the market opens. Now, what about the future after that? When the market opens 45 minutes after open at about 10:15 a.m., we have Waller giving a speech from the Fed, and that's going to be in Eastern Standard Time. So we'll see what happens then. And then finally, at 2 o'clock p.m., you need to be paying attention to this. We have the FOMC minutes. What is said during the minutes could cause some high volatility. So it's very important to be watching this and paying attention to what is said at the minutes, what is announced, what's reported, and etc. So be prepared for that. What is the FOMC minutes? It's not a typical FOMC meeting. It is simply just a meeting on paper. And we're going to get more insights about what happened with the Fed and what decisions they're making for monetary policy. Whatever happens at 2 p.m. is going to cause a really big move, most likely in the markets. So we will see what this causes for NIO. I also wanted to add that when it comes to the way the market's moving, don't forget that for Wednesday, there's not really a whole lot going on with earnings, but Thursday and Friday become more serious, okay? We have Domino's and just a couple of others coming out for Thursday. But then on Friday, we have the big bank earnings starting. That's going to kick off the much bigger earnings that start this session. So we have like JP Morgan, Citi, BlackRock all on Friday. Make sure you're prepared for this. It's going to be quite significant. Now, for NIO in particular, there wasn't really any new major piece of news that came out. We can see right here that on October 9th, NIO announced the achievement of 30 million battery swaps. And that was absolutely incredible for them. They did a great job at achieving that and shows that NIO has a very, very good system in place to make very, very quick battery swaps, to get more and more investors involved, to get more and more customers excited about their customer service and their abilities. So I'm very happy about this for NIO. When it comes to more data for NIO, the volume was about 42 million. I just wanted to add that we were up 5.88% for the day. I also wanted to say that for now, we have a short volume relative to price ratio of 46.76%. So nothing too crazy is going on with that. I also wanted to add that Deutsche Bank still has a buy rating for NIO, which is a good sign. And the price-price ratio is very flat as NIO is performing quite equally with the market, not really doing anything too crazy. Now, this data doesn't really matter as much going into tomorrow because we have something very big. So I just wanted to start off by talking about SPY and a couple of other tickers and then break down how this could affect NIO. I'm going to talk about NIO near the very end. So unfortunately, guys, we have some bearish signals developing on the markets and we could see some downside potentially because when we look at SPY, I'm going to start off by just pulling up SPY very quickly. We have a rising wedge basically that's forming. And we came to the bottom of the wedge today. If we break below this, we could see this thing start sinking back down to the lower 430s. So it all depends on the PPI data coming out in the morning, not to mention the FOMC minutes. If we get a bounce, there could be one last attempt for 438 before this thing starts sinking. So just be very careful. There is going to likely be some downside coming because of this. So whether we get one last bounce and then we end up dropping, or we just start dropping from here, there's likely downside coming if this ends up playing out. So just be very careful. The market was holding up, it was pushing nicely in the morning, but things are starting to switch. Now the QQQ has the same thing developing. If we actually look at the QQQ, this is going to have a bigger effect on the whole market. This is going to reflect what's happening with tech a lot more. And we could draw this out in a very different way. You could actually draw it out just like this if you want. We could draw it kind of like this, and you will notice that this is also continuing to develop a very similar trend. So if this ends up developing the way it could, right, this could potentially lead to downside for the market as well. So you want to be very careful when looking at this. If the QQQ gets one last bounce, we could see 372 before it ends up breaking. Or if it breaks this trend line right here, if it breaks that one, we could see this thing starts sinking towards 366 or below that. So you want to be very careful. Here's the other interesting part. Apple stock has the same thing developing. Another rising wedge on Aapl. If it breaks below 178, we could see this thing sink towards 176.5 or below that. If it bounces off here, we could get a one last push for 180 before that happens. There is a risk of downside though with this rising wedge, so just be very careful, especially heading into the PPI and the FOMC minutes. And then finally, when it comes to something else such as Nvda, I mean, this is actually not looking as bearish when it comes to its setup. It's still making higher highs and higher lows. I'm not really seeing a clean looking rising wedge. Let me just double check this so we can actually start from here. There is a possible one, but it's just not looking as clean as like the others that I was seeing. So we will see about this. We could just draw it out from like right here if you want, like just like this. But I don't really see it the same way. I really don't see it the same way. So we'll see if this ends up playing out or not for NVIDIA. I mean, for the time being, it's been holding up a little bit better than many of its counterparts. So we'll have to wait and see. If it breaks below this trend line right here, we could see it retest 451. So there is potential for a downside. And then finally, now I just want to transition to Webull for Tesla before I talk about NIO. Tesla looks decent. It's been trying to hold up, but there's a problem. The problem is we have a bearish divergence on the MACD and the RSI that is also developed on Tesla. So if we get one more push up, if this divergence remains, then there could be more downside coming eventually. If we end up seeing Tesla reject tomorrow, this could be a sign that we're about to see some downside off this bearish divergence. So if Tesla ends up sinking and it breaks below 262.5, we could see it come back down to the 250s. So be very, very careful about how things are looking. I want to make this as clear as possible, guys, that there is a risk of downside and that could have a big effect on NIO. If we're bullish on NIO, you want to see it break above the high it made right here and start pushing for $9. If it breaks 9, then 9.3 is on the table. If you're bearish on NIO, you want to see it break below 8.7. If that fails us, it could come down to 8.6 and 8.5. Which direction am I leaning in? Well, I think the market's going to have a big effect on it. And NIO has this critical resistance we're currently at 8.8 to $9. So either I could see this thing pop a little bit more before some possible downside soon, or this thing could just start dropping from here. So there is truly a risk of downside. So I just want to warn you about that. And I want to warn everyone to be very, very careful about how NIO is looking. So the market could drag NIO down because of PPA or the FOMC minutes. I want to warn you about that. Please remain calm, cool, and collected and do what you have to do. This is going to be very important. All right. So thank you for listening. Have an absolutely incredible day. Could NIO pop a bit more? It is possible, but I am anticipating some downside. I think we might see NIO come back down to the mid 8s, if not even lower than that. So this is just my warning because of how the market is looking. And with that said, please have a great day, everyone. Thank you all so much for listening. I really appreciate everyone out there. NIO to the moon because the long term is still very bright. People are asking how long it's going to take NIO to start pumping to higher levels. The answer is you just have to be patient. And I personally believe that towards the end of this year, going into next year, NIO has a lot of upside coming with the markets. But for the time being, there could be some downside coming for the markets and also NIO. So just be very careful. And I'll see you guys in the next video to discuss why on earth it's not the end of the world. All right, so it's not the end of the world. Don't worry. Some downside would be normal. Some sideways price action for NIO is fine, but the long term is still very bright. All right, thank you and peace out.